Hey everybody, we're going to talk about the National Interest Waiver NIW EB-2C for those interested, in particular about scientists. And this particular scientist field is sustainable energy from South Asia. All those are important because being from South Asia has different visa bulletin issues that you really want to talk about. And scientists are one of the primary groups of people that apply for the National Interest Waiver, a great green card category. So stay tuned. We're going to go in detail through the different aspects of it, what got them approved, what the process was, what we watched out for, and what pushed it that this case was to be approved with our great colleague Always Kazi, senior business associate attorney at the JQK law firm. Always, how are you doing?
Morning. How are you doing, John?
Doing good, doing good. I love talking about this. You did a great job getting this approved, so I'm really excited to share this information, everybody. We do have a copy of the redacted approval notice for people to check out. Plus, we're going to add a checklist there. When you go to the link, it's in the description where you can break down what you're doing if you're interested in this field and email it to us so we do an initial review. Many times a meeting is needed afterwards because we need to dive into the details, but at least you can do the basics here. If we see right off the bat you have a good case, we can let you know. So feel free to check the show notes for the website to access that information. So let's jump into it. The NIW National Interest Waiver is a great category because it allows you to self-petition. You don't need to have an employer in the United States, unlike many of the other categories. But there's three prongs or three criteria you have to satisfy. Always, what are those to get the NIW approved? What are these criteria?
Yes, John. So before we go on to, evaluating the three prongs, we have to see if the beneficiary, the applicant, has an advanced degree or is a person of exceptional ability. Typically, the definition of advanced degree is someone who has at least a master's degree or higher. A lot of our clients tend to have higher degrees, pursue this throughout their lives, even up to the doctorate level. And if not that, then they look at if he can pass this under the exceptional ability category, which has a list of items that are provided, and the applicant has to select a few from that list. One of them being that they have the person at least has a bachelor's degree plus has pursued 10 years of experience in the field that they're working in. That's sort of it's a longer explanation under that we can explore individually in the next segment. But this is something they have to satisfy before we go on to exploring the prongs.
Yeah, usually when we're dealing with scientists, they have PhDs, so it makes this part much smoother. We don't have to deal with that. It's usually showing the degree and showing that it's a proper degree. And then we get into the prongs, the first one being the proposed endeavor has both substantial merit and national importance. How did you argue this in this context for this scientist?
Well, it's very important to talk about here the national importance of the endeavor. Endeavor is basically the line of the work that the applicant has been pursuing and intends to pursue in the United States. So what's nationally important is it could be shown through various factors. If does it have the U.S. economy? Does it help the public interest in any way? Are we talking about infectious disease, for example? In this particular case, we're talking about sustainable energy, which is climate change. And the United States, like many other countries, has actually really put climate change as one of the top priorities that we have to sort of engage with and come up with technologies, renewable technologies, projects that take the country in that direction. And in terms of substantial merit, it's basically the endeavor that has or will have a positive impact on areas like science, technology, health, something that's of substantial merit in the United States, basically.
So when you think about it, it's just like, how can we show this is going to help the whole country, not a specific like state or locality? So then, argue and paint a picture that it's, great for the whole country, and that's how it works. Now, the second prong is, how is that foreign national well positioned to advance that proposed endeavor? How are they specifically going to do it? And there's several ways you can argue this. I kind of want to go to this particular case, see what you already hear. So one is typical for scientists is publications and citations. Do you have an estimate of how many this person had? And it's important to know that each scientific field has like different journals. Some people have hundreds of citations because it's typical in their field to have a lot of citations. Some have less. So it's not the end all be all citations. I know people get hung up on this, but it is an important thing. How many, what general numbers did this person have?
So in this case, we had well over, I'd say 100 citations. As you said that it's not the citations, so I don't want to discourage people who do not have, because in the past we've done cases where the applicants had little or no citations. It's just really the impact of your work. In our case, we really focus on the published research that had an international impact, really, including in the United States. So there were a lot of people who were willing to write letters of recommendation and support our applicant because they had collaborated in research, or even if they had not collaborated, they had actually benefited from our client's research
Yeah, I'm glad
and
you mentioned the
publications.
letters. So how many letters were put in, and what type of people wrote the letters?
So the number of letters, a good question I'm asked all the time, is like how many letters? And I tell my clients, it's not the quantity of the letters, the quality of them. So what I recommend people doing is to make a list of those who you think will have the most impact, the writers who are well positioned in their own fields. Having 5 to 10 letters is not unusual. It's pretty normal in these cases. If there can be more letters coming from sources that can have a huge impact, that's fine. So really don't focus so much on the quantity, the quality of them is what matters.
Do they have to be people you know, or could it be people you don't know but know of your work? Is that better or worse?
Both. It's our presentation has letters from both. It's a belief out there that if they don't know you personally, if they're well positioned in their field and they're willing to write a letter of recommendation on your behalf, well, that can have a significant impact because it just goes to show that the effect of your work, uh, whether it's nationally or internationally, that there are people out there who are willing to write letters for you who are well positioned in their field, who are scientists on their own, and who've benefited from your research. So that definitely should be in the mix.
Now, one thing is when you do these letters, we've had it where the people write it themselves and then they give it to us, and that becomes problematic because the USCIS wants particular things in the letter. First, you want to identify who the speaker is and talk about how great they are so the government knows who this person is. Now, you could find an online biography and attach it to them, but them just describing it makes it easier. So we sometimes or many times do help draft the basics of this letter. We don't tell people what to say because we're not in a position to say that. But when it comes to introduction of the person to show their esteem and their established really good, and the main talking points that come really important, those are things we want to mention there that we can help draft. What about awards and stuff like that? Do they have any awards?
Yeah, national awards that are national or international. Definitely, they have to be figured in to the mix. We're talking about scientific awards. It could be an invention. My client in particular, the more recent case we applied for had won a national science award. It was the highest award given to scientists locally. So that is one of the categories that we can focus on when we talk about how this person is well positioned
Hmm.
to pursue the endeavor, basically.
Yeah, and along with those awards, like getting funding from agencies and National Institute of Health or whatever, UN giving
Yeah,
money.
yeah.
These are all great indicators, as well as memberships in certain groups that are established and working at great institutions. I think this one they worked at a major place. You can say, listen, I was at this location. I can't remember if they taught there or what the detail was, but
Mhm.
those are things to consideration.
Well, as an example, in this particular case, the applicant had collaborated in research across big institutions across the world, including the United States.
Mhm.
He had worked before in certain universities here, which were working on some really significant projects. So that, along with uh, awards, uh, are some of the things that we basically like to look at to see if this person is going to be satisfying the category of if he's well positioned, if he or she is well positioned.
Mhm. So, this takes care of the second prong, which essentially looks at have they been doing great work and how they can show they will be doing great work in the United States. And I talked earlier about you not being a requirement that you have employment in the United States, but if you have a job lined up or professors write letters like you're going to, come teach here or do this work, it helps paint the picture of how they're going to continue this work. So that's it. So the third prong is kind of a discretionary kind of thing. Just says, on balance, would it be beneficial to the U.S. to waive the requirement for having a job offer and blah, blah, blah? Essentially, if you get the first two, they feel that the third one falls into place. And it's all about painting a picture so that the officer falls in love and says, we need this person in the United States right now. They're that important. I want to go into process now. What forms do you have to submit for an NIW to get started? There's kind of nuance to that too.
Well, I mean, your last point is very important, that uh, the presentation has to be made in a way where the officer can make that determination by the end of reading your packet that, yes, this case is amounts to the level of a waiver. A waiver of what? So typically in other employment categories, you need a company to sponsor you and go through the Labor Department process called labor certification. That process could be lengthy. The process can have mixed results if there's recruitment done and qualified American workers are found. So this is basically bypassing that by showing that the endeavor, the background of this person is so significant to our national interest, which could be economic, amongst other things, that we're willing to bypass this labor certification process and go straight into filing of the petition. So what is done is, in order to initiate this process, an immigrant petition is filed with the USCIS, which is the main immigration agency in the United States. It's called I-140 petition, and the USCIS will entertain the petition, spend a few months in processing it. Right now, we're looking at probably 8 to 10 months for the I-140 to process. And once the processing is completed and if it's approved, if the applicant is residing in the United States at that time, the applicant can pursue adjustment of status, meaning applying for the green card in the US, or pursue an immigrant visa abroad at a US embassy.
Now, quick note, we're recording this in September 2022. They said premium processing is fully coming to these cases, not fully there. So that'll speed things up when it does come. And if we're going to go into the visa bulletin in case being current, you can potentially concurrently file the adjustment of status with the I-140. It's not always the best thing to do because your pay adjustment of status fee, it may or may not work. So you're spending more money, but it's a strategy decision you have to make. And along with the I-140, there's a nominal ETA you have to submit and a statement of the applicant. Can you talk about what those two ETA is and the statement of the applicant are about?
Well, the ETA 9089, when you hear the words ETA, that has to do with Department of Labor. So again, going back to what we talked about just a minute before, about in other employment categories, the applicant must go through the Labor Department and file an ETA 9089, get that certified before moving on to the immigrant petition. In this case, the ETA 9089 requirements are waived. However, we do include a template petition in the case to attach to the I-140, but it's not the same as one that has been certified by the Department of Labor. So it doesn't have all that information on it.
Sure.
And your other point about a statement of endeavor, which is very important actually. Depending on what background the person has and what type of case this is going to be, it's going to be a very detailed statement of endeavor, which basically shows the applicant's intent, just showing basically how much research have they done as to what they plan to do in the United States with their endeavor. What are they going to research? Are they going to work somewhere? Or have they reached out to potentials? Just to get the USCIS an idea, this person has done a little bit more than just thought about this.
And so the last point I want to talk about is the issue with filing, when you could file. This was a South Asian case, particularly from Pakistan, but it could easily have been an Indian case, and those are wildly different processing times. Right now, the embassies are really slow if you're processing there, so it take forever. But in a case from Pakistan, because there is no backlog, they can essentially file the adjustment of status with the I-140, or when the I-140 is approved, there's no additional line of wait other than the slowness of getting interviewed. But if they're from India, there is a backlog. And a way to check that is by going to Visa Bulletin and looking at the second preference category under India, and it shows what cases are currently being approved. And the date there is based on your priority date when the I-140 was submitted for the national interest waiver. And there's delay there. So you should unfortunately expect that kind of situation if you were born in India. It's based on where you're born, not the passport per se.
That is correct, John. The Visa Bulletin is where it's a very important reference that is updated monthly. It basically decides who's getting a green card or immigrant visa today, in which country you're born in, is where the chargeability is assigned to. So in our particular case, the person was from Pakistan, so it was not facing those lengthy backlogs. But easily, if you're from China or India, the categories tend to be backlogged. But a note on that, you can still pursue, if you're from China or India, you can still pursue this category. Oftentimes, our clients come to us and they have previous I-140 petitions filed many years ago. And one of the important aspects here are the recapture of the priority date. So if a person feels like a priority date is better for the national interest waiver, or something is not going well with the previous one, you can file a national interest waiver petition and capture the old I-140's date to be able to assign to it, which might make your prospects better in terms of if your date is going to get processed soon or not.
That's
this is something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because a lot of people maybe here on H-1B, the employer already filed a perm for them, that's when we started, so they have that date. I completely forgot that. That's a great point. And I guess one more thing people should be careful on, especially for scientists, many times they've been here on a J-1 visa, and those can be subject to what's called a 2-year home residency requirement, which means before you get a green card, even an H-1B, you have to leave, go back to your home country for 2 years, unless you get a waive. It's more complex. You can't always get a waive. So just be mindful of that. Even, when you're starting this process, if you're going to get a J-1, know the potential consequences and think about whether that's going to apply to you. But always, thank you so much. There's great information you shared. I know everyone's going to take a lot away from it to help them with their case. Please, visit in the description. We have a link, download a copy of the approval, but also our breakdown checklist of things that we look for initially. You can send it to us for initial review. We'll see if we give you a quick answer, what we think about the case, and take it from there. But it's a wonderful category. We love it the most here because one of the most categories, because they really are helping to make the world a better place. You've helped so many scientists and doctors and not just these kind of fields, but everything that really come here to change the game. So it's fascinating working with these clientele. I love it. I know it's the same for you.
Yeah, it's definitely we enjoy a lot in immigration law, but this particular category is where we meet some amazing people from around the world who are actually making a difference already, and they get a chance to come to this country and contribute. We always look forward to the consultations in this. So there's a lot to talk about. John is right, and a lot of subcategories in this, and we're happy to discuss that with our prospective clients. So just look forward to the information, and we'll just wait. We'll be waiting.
Wonderful. So if you haven't already, like and subscribe to this channel. I'm going to put much more case reviews and information to help you better understand this process and make a decision in your case to get you in America and help the world go around. Until next month, everyone, have a good one. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching this educational program. To get the latest videos, click the subscribe button and the notification bell icon. Also, help us help the immigrant community by liking this video and sharing it with your family and friends. You can also find us on other social media sites like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Twitter, where you find the latest updates on immigration news, policy changes, and tips. Be safe and God bless. See you soon.